Hello and welcome to For the Love of Creatives podcast. I'm Maddox.
And I'm Dwight. We're the Connections and Community Guys, and today we are joined by our featured guest, Berend McKenzie.
Hello.
Welcome, Barron. So glad to see you. Just so the audience knows, I know Barron because he was a guest on my previous podcast a little over 2 years ago. So it's a reunion. We haven't seen each other since then.
I know, and it's so good to see you. Feels like a whole lifetime. We've
It
had a whole
does.
lifetime since we've seen each other.
Lots have changed for
Lots of
both of
changes.
us.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, all right then. My name is Berend McKenzie. I am an actor, writer, producer living in Toronto, Canada. And yeah, I'm a playwright. I write short stories, artist, anything artistic. I love to sink my hands into, and yeah, and I'm really happy to be here.
Oh,
Good to have you.
yeah, glad you've joined us. Uh, could you tell us a little bit about how you got started on the creative path?
Sure. I've been a creative. I was a creative kid. I think my first skill was learning how to lie. Um, you know, uh, I wasn't always the best actor when it came to lying. I always got those like big wide eyes and turned kind of pale, and my family could always tell when I was lying, but it sure gave me a goal to work towards to see if I could get away with the lie. But I've always been creative. I've always been drawn to anything movies, TV shows. My first love was listening, and I was just thinking about this the other day, listening to the Brothers Grimm,
Oh,
all of those really dark fairy tales. Like I was so young. I was a toddler, and we had these, and I just remember the mood of them and the way the vocalization of these stories and the darkness of them and the light of them. And I think even at that point in my life, I was sort of synapsing off of those two things, the dark and the light, and it just followed. I just followed through. I kind of stumbled into things. I'm a stumbler into life. I don't realize I can do something or I'm attracted to something unless I stumble into it, and then it becomes a passion. And so, yeah, I've been creating pretty much all my life.
that's wonderful.
I'm curious. So, as this began to show up in your life, what kind of messages did you get from those around you? You know, the people that their words have great influence on us.
Um, with my family, I sucked at school. Like I was terrible. I had ADHD, dyslexic, and I had a learning disability. So I think my parents, my adoptive parents, I was adopted at the age of 1, grew up in a white family. We grew up all over northern Alberta, which is uh, very conservative, not no people of color, Black and Indigenous, but other than that, um, and so I think my family, my parents were just glad that I found something that I was half decent at. Like at one point I could really sing. And I didn't know I could sing. It was grade 4 or 5, and a teacher came up. His name was Mr. Gilchrist, and we had just moved to this very small town, and life for me at home was not very good. And in my first class, we had a choir class, and he came and stood beside each of us. And he spent a lot of time beside me. And when the class was over, he called me to the side and thought, oh my God, I'm in trouble. It's like barely 2 hours into school, my 5th year, and I'm already in trouble. And he said, you have a really good voice. Would you like to join the choir? And I was like, sure. But up until that point, like I liked to sing, but I didn't know I could sing. And that then turned into being featured in these school assemblies where, Joseph, I played Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and oh God, Noah and his floating zoo, and all these sort of, I was always featured in these things. And it really, at that age, at that time in my life, meant so much, because I come from a childhood where abuse is a part of my story, and uh, school and choir was a real escape for me. And in a world and a time when I didn't feel special, this one teacher really did allow me to discover that I had something to offer the world besides problems and lying and stealing and acting out and abuse and being beat up by my father. So, that's where it started. And ever since then, I've had mentors all my life. None of my work, none of my, none of what I've done in my life would be possible without the, um, the beautiful helping hand I've gotten from people who know way more about what I'm trying to achieve than I do. So I've really, since that time, I've kept my eye out for the people that are my champions, and I hold on to them like life rafts. I think that that's part of my job, is to find the people who I know are my champions and who believe in what I do, aren't jealous of what I do or bring to the table, and only are there to inspire me and to support me.
And does this show up as collaborations or true mentorships?
Both, like both. When I started writing, my very first mentor was in acting. He was my professor at school. His name was Timothy F. Ryan. And he was just this, I was so screwed up coming into college. I was 19. It was I'd lived through I came out I ran away from home when I was 15. I lived on the streets of Edmonton as a queer gender. I thought I was very confused about my gender. Found a community of drag queens at this bar in Edmonton, Alberta, and became a drag queen, and learned how to perform with them. So they were kind of my initial mentors, don't steal, show up, rehearse, all those like street smart things that drag queens are really good at teaching you, and how to do my makeup, take pride in my work, all that stuff. And then the AIDS pandemic hit, and suddenly at a very young age, I was going to 3 or 4 funerals a month, and drinking alcoholically, and really lost in my life. And I was at about the age of 19, a friend of mine could see that my alcoholism was getting worse, and told me, if you don't, you're just going to be a drunken loser all your life. And I was like, yeah, well, fuck you. And so I showed up hungover to this audition for a musical theater program. And how I made it through that audition, I have no idea. Like, I was literally in between the dance and ballet, which I can't do either. But during those audition times, I was sleeping on a on a mat underneath a stairwell, just trying to get some energy up for the next phase. But I fluked I stumbled into this program. And that's where I met Tim Ryan. And a lot of the other professors, what I got, especially in the early 80s, you had to fit into a category, right? Well, in Alberta, in Edmonton at that point, I was the only Black kid in that program. And they didn't know what to do with me because I had a high voice. I wasn't like gangster Black. I was more I don't know, Bob the Drag Queen Black. You know, I was more more Faye than Hood. Um, and I literally was told by the main acting professor that there was no space for me in this career at all. And Tim was the one that championed me and said, no, absolutely, there is space. And that really gave me courage and gave me the inspiration to work harder and to, at that time in my life, I liked being underestimated because that gave me the drive to prove you wrong. Now I've changed that. I've changed that idea of being underestimated. Now I demand, when I meet people now, I I don't underestimate you. If you tell me you can do something, I believe you. And I expect the same thing back. And I think that that's one of the things that Timothy taught me was, you know, you have to have respect for yourself and you have to demand to be seen and heard and you have to work hard. And so he was my first. And then it just went from there to a bunch of mentors and everything else. So yeah.
Those are amazing life lessons, are they not?
What an
Oh,
amazing gift.
amazing, amazing, especially at that time, because, you know, there were no Angels in America, there was all that stuff. But even then, those plays did not have people like me in them, unless somebody like Tim thought outside. Like, I hate the fact that he would have to think outside of the box to put me into a show, but that's what I got all the time. And then at the age of 21, I was diagnosed HIV positive, and that's when sort of I just thought I was going to die. And so I lived my life for many years addicted and uh, uh, very sick and almost died until I got sober in 20, oh, it's been 22 years. 20, it'll be 23 years this year
Hmm.
that I got sober. And
Congratulations,
Yes.
Baron. That is
Congratulations.
an enormous accomplishment.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
Bravo.
thank you. I appreciate it. But once that happened, because of those years of darkness where I wasn't taking part in life and not taking part in art and not seeking mentorship, I'd lost contact with everybody that supported me because I was just too awful to be around. I really, once I got sober, I thought if I could do good stuff when I was high and drunk, what could I do sober? So once again, I started looking for those mentors and those people that believed in me. And those came in the form of agents who saw something in me, casting agents who saw something in me and cast me in my first couple of films. And I really did dive into the acting, film and TV acting. I worked with Halle Berry and Catwoman. I worked with Angelina Jolie, and my very first film was with Angelina Jolie right after she won the Oscar. Both terrible movies, but I was in them, so hey, I got paid. Um, and it really was a process of me looking for those people that believed in my talent, believed in what I brought to the table, and who I could also enhance their lives, right? Like it's not just about me taking, it's really about me also bringing value and value to what you do. And that was a lesson that I had to learn, that it's not just about taking, taking, taking. It's about giving back. And I think that's what you guys do with your podcast, which is really exciting.
Well,
You
thank
know,
you. We're honored for that recognition. I am curious about how you mentioned that you have been inspired by your mentors.
Yeah.
You've had those people who've encouraged you. Um, have you had the opportunity to be a mentor for others? And what's that been like?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I just treated other people the way I was treated. And it's been super rewarding. It's been as an alcoholic, I don't know if anybody has alcoholics in their lives, but we tend to be very selfish, and and I'm an actor, so it's about me all the time. Even and sometimes my way of getting to connect with you is by delving into my own story in order, and that can sometimes seem self-serving and sort of making it about me when it's not. So being a mentor has really allowed me to um, give of myself without expectation of getting anything back, and no ownership. I've had mentors that came in as mentors and left as dangerous, because what I found is that they wanted to own my work. They wanted to own what I do. They wanted to take credit for the things that I'd done. And I would never say that none of my work and none of the plays or anything that I've done was ever done on my own steam alone. But for them to take credit for my work, that was a bridge too far. So for me as a mentor, I won't really get into mentorship with somebody if I feel that there's any sort of competition with them, if I feel a little bit of like, oh, jealousy, like, oh, I wish I had what they had. And that doesn't happen often. So I've really been able to work with some really exciting new filmmakers and writers, and you're just there to listen, like there to support, there to be encouraging, um giving notes to writers. A lot of people don't know how to do that. A lot of people are dream killers, especially in the film industry, which I've learned. Yeah, we were talking earlier, one of my favorite sayings is say yes before I say no. And what I've learned through even just giving notes to mentees, that my job is not to tell you, no, this can't be done, or no, that's not a good idea, or no, why would you even think that? My job, I feel, is to say yes to everything that you're doing, but also giving my own honesty about where I think you could maybe push the story into a new direction, or do this with it, or take it, maybe this character might be able to do this. So it's about nuance. Mentorship for me is about nuance. How I speak to the mentee really can be the difference between failure and success for them. And I don't want to be in the failure category ever.
Mm, beautiful. I love that. Barron, you have been blessed to have throughout your life, guardian angels have shown up. These
Yeah.
people that have believed in you and mentored you.
Yeah.
And even though there was a few in there that tried to take advantage of you, you've still been really, really blessed with all that has shown up.
Yeah.
What did you, what do you believe that you did or that you were that attracted those people to you?
Um,
Because, we live, I'm a firm believer in the law of attraction. Nothing's coincidental. You showed up in life in a manner that drew those people to you. Can you identify what that was?
well, I think it has to do with, for me, it had to do with the skill set that I brought. Like when I met that teacher in grade 5 about the singing, I had the tool. I was raw and didn't know how to use it. His job was to teach me. But once I think I bring passion, um, I bring a sort of still, even at the age of 56, I bring like a childlike naivete to things. I'm I bring a curiosity. I ask a stupid amount of questions. I I take risks with my work. I As a writer, I knew right away that I had a very distinctive voice. I'm teachable. Um, I'm accountable. I I show up for deadlines. I push through when it's really, really difficult. Those are all things that I just got from life, I think. I had to do that in my life. I had to push myself to show up even when I didn't want to. So I think a lot of these mentors that I have gotten, we see in each other what we see in ourselves, or vice versa. I see what I see in you, I see in me. And I think they just saw that I had that drive to move forward.
Can we go a little deeper?
Mhm.
I think you're right on to something there. You know, we've all known people that showed up with the talent and the skill and the accountability and the drive and all those things that you mentioned and still didn't get any breaks.
Right.
I think that, and you're teetering right on the edge of it. Maybe it was, you know, you said people show up and reflect back to what was it that you must have been, the way you were showing up, that you were reflecting to them. You know, it's something inside here.
Yeah.
It's not what you were doing. I just have to believe it was something inside that drew all of those people to you.
I mean, it's a really good question, and it's funny that like I am working with two amazing mentors. I've discovered through some writing programs since I moved to Toronto. Specifically last year, I found a really amazing film mentor, and on the other hand, I found an amazing a TV writing mentor. And the other day I was like, one of them, his name is Anthony Q. Farrell. He wrote on The Office. He's an award-winning showrunner. He's the TV guy, and he is just one of the most amazingly supportive, beautiful, encouraging humans that you could ever have in your life. And for whatever reason, he has chosen to really take me under his wing. Same with Mitch LeBlanc. He is one of Canada's up and coming film writers. Smart, dedicated, funny, all those things. And he too is somebody that I met this last year and has taken me under his wing. And just the other day, I was thinking, like, how did I get so blessed? What did I do to deserve and to attract these people into my life? And to not answer your question, I don't know. I really don't know what
I
that
think
is.
I think I know as you continue to talk, it is becoming it's coming into focus. Everything that you're saying, and then built in with my own intuition, which is really strong,
Mm,
I get that it's because you hold a certain belief system.
mhm.
What is that belief system? You hold a certain belief system that makes this all possible. Not just possible, but probable. You've attracted these people to you, but you've done it with a belief system.
Oh my God. These are questions that I get asked, and then I need to like spend a year contemplating.
Well, and I think
I
that's
think
valid.
like, pardon me?
I think that's valid. That's definitely um, something that taps far beneath the surface.
Yeah, and I think it's a really great question. I think my belief system, the core of it is, you know what? I really do not know what I I sit down. I think for me, it's about I've never enjoyed life. I've never been somebody that woke up in the morning and went, "Oh my goodness, I can't wait to see what tomorrow brings or today brings." I've never been that person. Um, and I think what has pushed me forward is almost that determination to find the joy of life before my life is over. To find that morning where I wake up and go, I can't wait to see what today brings. Last year, in 2022 was probably the hardest year I ever had because I'd moved across the country. I'd lost my partner of 28 years in 2019, and that's when Maddox and I first met. I had just moved to Edmonton. I was broken. The grief was so heavy and deep that I just needed a shift and change. Moved across the country when I started writing film and television and wanting to take this risk while I could with my age, with the money that I had. And it landed here in Toronto thinking that everything would just be laid at my feet. And I spent like a year of no's. Every door I tried to open was a no. Every single thing that I attempted and tried to push through was a no. And this time, last year at Christmas time, on Christmas Day, I wrote out a suicide note. And you know, I sought help. I got help. And I think, like, I want to learn how to, I really would love to learn how to love life. And I think that's what keeps me going. And oftentimes, I need people to see what I bring to the table before I see it in myself. And sort of as soon as I got help with the suicide stuff, the ideation and the planning last year, all of a sudden this last year just blew up for me. Like all these opportunities, all these mentorship opportunities, these money-making doors and gates open, these connections with people in the industry that I could only have dreamed of. So to be completely honest with that very sort of deep question, I don't know what my driving force is. All I know is that art has saved my life on every level, at every time, in every way imaginable. Art has been the thing that has saved me from myself. It's saved me from others. It's saved me from the world, specifically now with what's happening in the United States and in Canada as well, the rise of the right and the transphobia and the hatred and the fear. The day after the election, and I spent 3 weeks I had so much hope. And I hadn't allowed myself to have hope about an election for many, many years. And the dread and the anxiety and the sadness and the fear that overtook me at the night of the election when I saw where it was going, the complete devastation and the disbelief that people could be this stupid. I woke up that next morning and the only thing I knew to do was to sit down at my computer, open up my script that I've been working on that's about AIDS and hockey and addiction and dive headfirst into that. And I think I opened that document at 8 o'clock in the morning. By 7 o'clock at night, I ate dinner. Like it literally, and I knew then that the only thing that's going to save me right now, save my mental health, save my spirit, which is just starting to sort of heal from the suicide stuff, is my art. That's the driving force.
You know, Barron, I just have to say this is so unbelievably rich because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are going to be so many people when they listen to this that can identify so completely. People who are either in it right now or have gone through it or are on their way into it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had a whole year where nothing, no breakthroughs, a whole year after you moved where you just couldn't win for losing. And then all of a sudden something shifted, and the next year has just been like, wow, right? Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah.
Something shifted inside of you. Because
Yeah.
that's the only way that can happen. Something shifted inside of you. And I kind of keep kind of tipping back to it because this is so powerful. If you can identify what shifted in you, others
Mm-hmm.
will hear this and be able to identify what needs to shift in them. Even your mentees that you work with, this is so rich.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the thing that shifted after I kind of woke up from the muddy swamp water I'd been trudging through for a long time, um, is my learning is learning that my self-worth is not determined by others liking me or um sorry, there's somebody at my door. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
God, sorry. I haven't had anybody show up at my door. That means a gentleman caller. Um, Nothing. He's been trying to get in my door for the last 15 minutes.
Oh,
Anyways,
goodness.
sorry. There was something about that moment and that time that um, I think what happened when I finally came out of the fog is that I realized that there was more to live for.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's answering your question, dude. I really don't. I don't know.
You're
I don't,
you're doing you're doing great. Just
Yeah.
this
keep
kind
going.
of
You're
question.
doing great.
So this is the thing for me. This is the thing for me. I don't spend a lot of time analyzing why. And I notice that about myself, even in these questions when I apply for these would apply in writing for writing rooms or to get into these mentorships or to do these things. Um, the questions always come up like, what is your process? Fuck, I don't know. I I wake up, I have a tea, I doom scroll, I play Candy Crush, and then at 10 o'clock, I sit down at my computer and I write for 6 hours. And then I make dinner, and then I go to bed. And so I don't spend a lot of time of asking why, because why for me has never been important. For me, it's always been the fact that it is.
That's beautiful. And it strikes me that sometimes you're asked why in those applications because they want to know. They're trying to figure it out too.
They're trying to
Hell,
figure it out
hell
too, but
yes.
and so I appreciate the question, but I mean the fact that I was thinking about why am I like I, I don't ask a question like why are these people attracted to me to figure it out. For me, it's a gratitude piece. It's that humility piece that when you speak about being humble, you're not humble. You're talking about it, but you're not really humble. But that's when the true humility of me comes out is when I'm sitting there in my walks in the neighborhood or whatever, and I'm going, why are these people so interested in my life? Or why do these people want to give so freely of themselves to me and my work? So it is a great question. I just don't know that I have the answer. And maybe if we meet up in the next 6 months, I'll be able to, you know, give you a little more than what I have because it ain't coming.
Well,
That's okay.
I think that you've shared a great deal that a lot of people will be able to relate to when it comes to looking at the incredible successes that you have, in some cases, stumbled into, the
Yeah.
bright lights, the large and small, just having that assurance that you had a talent when you were a child, that someone uh, had they appreciated it enough to um, turn you onto it and to help you to grow and nurture that talent. And then you contrast that with all of the things that you have had to endure that others have as well, but we don't take a chance to look at the totality of all of the things that we carry, the abuse from the time that you were a small child, having to grieve the loss of someone that you had loved for so long and had been such a part of your life, and having to figure out how to find your way on the street. And I, as you shared what it was to leave home at 15, I was thinking about some similarities in my own story.
Mhm.
And the pandemic, we all went through that.
Yeah.
And I say that there's a lens that we can look at some of these things, some of these great losses through, where if we're lucky, we get a chance to earn those scars, because it means that we've lived long enough to
Yeah.
have experienced what it is to love and to have that loss.
Yeah. And I mean, as you're speaking, um, as a child, I was given up by my white mother, who was estranged from it was underage white mother in the middle of Alberta in 1968. I was given up by her, so I was abandoned by her. Father wasn't in the picture. Then I was adopted into this white family who, my parents, as well intentioned as they thought they um, uh, were used their white supremacy within the family to keep the three brown kids that they adopted or fostered as the target and the problem. And if it wasn't for you, and then use their white privilege to sort of put a mask of a veil of perfection around us so nobody would ever ask any questions. At that time in my life, um, when I remember one day I was sitting in the back seat of the car, and I don't know how old I was, very young, and I had just been beaten up by my dad. And at that stage, when I was young, like I was 4 or 5, 5 or 6, something, I said to my mom, who was in the passenger seat, I said, Ivor, my best friend at the time, his parents don't hit him. And it wasn't the response that mattered, what my mom said, but even at that age, I think all my life I have been striving. I know what I bring to the table and value. I know as a Black person, I am no different than anybody else. I do not think differently. I do not smell differently. I do not act differently. As a gay person, the same thing. I love the same. I bleed the same. I yearn for the same things. And I always knew that I was just as human as everybody else. And I think my creative process has been about putting that somehow, putting that humanity, my humanity, out on the page. Because if it's written down, if it's seen on film, somehow that proves in a way that I am real. And I think the lesson that I learned this year is, like, I don't have to prove anything to anybody anymore. I've lived through so much and I've survived so much and I've thrived through so much. and I've taken advantage and been given these opportunities that are, yes, luck, but what is luck? It's or what is, it's like when preparation and, when you're prepared for something, an opportunity meet, like that's what luck is. I've been prepared and I've been given the opportunity and I worked really hard. And I think for me, the whole idea of creation has been about figuring out my own humanity, and getting up in the morning has been about me proving to the world in some way or shape or fashion that I exist and I deserve to exist and I'm just the same. Maybe that's a little bit closer to what my driving force is.
Barron,
Mm.
you just answered the question.
Well, there. Thank you. My God, it took
You
like
just answered the question. It's like, and I'm going to paraphrase, just quite frankly, you are real. That's it. You show up in every situation
yes.
as just
Yeah.
real,
Yeah.
and you believe in yourself. You believe that you're equal to everybody
Yeah.
else.
Yes, I have, and I do, and I am I for a kid that was always told I was a liar, I was the most honest kid in the house, and I have spent my life being a lightning rod. I have been, and I was so exhausted from it for so long. I'm tired of people either love me or they hate me. But what you will always get from me is authenticity. Because when I got sober, being an addict and being a liar and scamming and stealing, I knew the one thing, the only way that I was going to stay sober was if I was as honest as I could possibly be within every moment. And the one thing that sobriety has given me and that I'm so grateful for is I can walk into any room right now, any room, and own my space. As a child, I could never. As a child, I would, but then it would be dimmed by somebody else. And so that is one of my superpowers. I can sit down with you and be myself and be angry at whoever is knocking on my door and won't leave me alone, to being joyful, to being sad. Like don't ask me how I am if you don't want to know.
You are describing a extreme sense of self-acceptance.
Yeah.
And when I know for a fact that when we can truly accept and embrace ourselves
Yes.
for everything that we are, the good, the bad, and the ugly,
Yeah.
then it opens up a whole universe of acceptance from those around us. I've
Well, it's
experienced that in my own
vulnerability.
life.
Yeah.
I want to call out and acknowledge you. You have been through an immense amount of really, really hard shit. And in spite of all that, you are not just still standing, you're thriving.
Mm.
You, God, the amount of resilience that you are demonstrating. Just pure resilience.
Yeah, I'm stubborn as fuck.
You just keep getting up. Doesn't matter
I'm
what knocks you
stubborn.
down, you just keep getting up. And I have to believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm speculating here, that this is the power of creativity.
Oh my God, it's like I have a story to tell. I mean, there's so many. I remember being in acting school, and the the teachers the instructors or professors would say, go out and live a life. Go get dumped, go get a venereal disease, go, lose somebody, go live life, because that life is going that your life that those experiences are going to feed your characters, they're going to feed your work, they're going to give you something to of depth to tap into. And by the time I was hearing that, I'd already just survived the freaking AIDS pandemic, right? Like we'd gone to war we were at war with governments and systems and homophobic, bigoted people. So I was like, oh, like that is, I think that that is also the thing is that attracts people to me is like when I was doing my show Nigger Fag, you know, I had students that would come up to, I still get texts. I get Instagram messages. I got an Instagram message not too long ago from this person who said to me, because my Nigger Fag is about my experiences growing up Black, gay, bullied, and struggling as a kid. And it was a kid show that I performed for 5 years, took it to Scotland. You know, it changed my life. In Edmonton during the pandemic, I was thinking, God, I wonder if it really did touch anybody's heart, right? Like, you never know when you put something out there. And sure enough, almost like, you know, an answer from above, I get an Instagram message that said, you don't know me, but my name is, and I was in grade 9 when you came to my school. And I was coming out of the closet and I hated myself and I was terrified. And then I saw you perform. And then I saw how Nelly you were. And I thought, well, if you can be this Nelly, then I could be this Nelly. And right after your play, I came out of the closet and I started a gay straight alliance in my school. And now I'm a DJ and I thank you for what you've done. And really for me, it's about vulnerability. Vulnerability attracts, not victimhood, but vulnerability, being completely honest where I'm at in every moment of every day is my currency, and it's a blessing.
There's the answer to the question as well. Bingo. That's what has attracted all those mentors. That's what has attracted everything. Vulnerability is a polarizer.
Yeah.
People either scream and run in the opposite direction when we get really, really real. They scream and run because it terrifies them.
Yeah.
Or they want to come and sit right next to us. And there's not a lot of in between. It's a very polarized vulnerability. It really is kind of extreme.
Yeah.
And it's very powerful. I believe personally that it sends all of the people away that I wouldn't want to be with anyway.
Yeah.
And it attracts the people that I most would want to be close to.
Yeah.
It's magical.
It is. And you know, it can sometimes make me feel like douching with acid afterwards, you know, after I open my spirit up and kind of blah it out in my art, in my work. I mean, right now I'm writing my feature film is called The Last Night of Hockey in Canada. And it's autobiographical, and it's about one night during in the 90s when the Rangers were playing the Vancouver Canucks, and I was summoned to the bedside of a friend. And it's really all about my behavior during that really difficult time. And when I first wrote the short story that was published during COVID on it, I was running to the bathroom, dry heaving, because I'd talked about this story before, but I'd never gone into the story and written it from that perspective. And the amount of shame and remorse and guilt I felt about my behavior at that time was just so deep and heavy. And I think that is when you are an artist, and it doesn't matter how you do, what art you do, what your discipline is, when you put people respond to that vulnerability within the work. And I'm learning that right now. Like people are reading this piece and going, oh my God, this is like crazy. But what it does is it also encourages other people to be as brave with their things. It's pretty magical.
Barron, did that allow you to let go of all that shame?
It has. It has. I mean, I don't know if it's just because I've been looking at the script for so long now. I think when I first picked it up at the beginning of the year, I was feeling that shame again and that heaviness and oh God, oh my God, I don't know if I have the armor to go back into this because I wrote it in during COVID and then didn't go back for a couple of years. But yeah, it is what it is. It's my story and it is what's made me who I am. It's a part of it, right?
I think the vomiting that you described, running to the bathroom, was symbolic of letting go. It's
Yeah.
it was coming out of you literally.
I think it's a touch point back to what you said before about how art has saved you. This project
Yeah.
has helped you to fully metabolize those
Yeah. And
emotions.
it like there's another story. There's something else that I'll talk to you about because we're close friends now. Um, what this process with this piece has done for me and opening me up has allowed other things to drop. And we were talking earlier about the thing of inspiration, the thought of the download of something else that drops into your head. And I think because I was so open this summer, because I was so vulnerable on the page with my work, with no, my mentor reading it, but nobody else. But I knew that I was like, my heart was, I was really going there with the work that I've been writing. I was walking, I go for a walk in High Park, which is a couple blocks away because I got a spare tire around my waist and I got to walk. And I was listening to, I don't know, a murder podcast because that's just so relaxing. And a download came in. And the download was, and it was a voice that was louder than the sound in my ears, just booming, all encompassing, but not a screaming voice. It was just a sensible voice that said, just face it, you were raped. And I stopped on the path and I looked down at my feet and I just went, yeah, you were. And this happened 22 right after I got sober. And I blame myself for it. And how this ties into the work, I think because I kind of split my innards open to get this AIDS hockey story out and was living in that. It allowed other things to start to realizations and thoughts and things that I still need to look at and still need to work on. Art is amazing that way. If I don't fight, or the resistance is always going to be there when I work, but if I fight through the resistance and I just do the work, the world opens up. And I think that's, after the suicide, I mean, after the suicide and then this, it's not weird. It's not a coincidence to me that thought of the rape came sort of dropping in at this time when I could actually face it. And
Yeah,
my art is my art is the thing that opened it up, is what
ti
I think.
timing is everything,
Yeah.
and I mean, it came about at a time when you were ready and able
Yeah.
to actually look at it. We've kind of gone into a little bit of overtime. I
Okay,
want to
sorry.
cover one more topic, and we'll
Yeah.
have to kind of make it a little bit brief. Um, how has community played a role in all your creative life, if
Oh,
any?
all of everything, inspiration, courage, the gay community, the drag queens. I wouldn't have survived without them, without their guidance and their parentage and their, you know, the writing community here in Toronto. Like I moved here to be a part of this. Really, Toronto has a massive BIPOC writing community that is huge and supportive and encouraging. And like, if I hadn't gotten their feedback, gotten their acceptance, and been invited to their parties, done all those things, like none of it would be happening for me. Like the AIDS community, right? Like made me feel not alone anymore. The recovery community is the same thing. I'm not alone. When I'm a part of community, when I put my art into community, the community holds me back, right? It's a copacetic, supportive relationship. So community is everything. I can't make art in a vacuum. I can't do it alone. I have to
Oh,
allow people in.
God, I love how you're wording all that, and the fact that you've so clearly demonstrated that sometimes when we think about community, it's just a single community, but it's not. It's a
No.
whole variety of communities, and sometimes a community can just be you and one other person,
Yeah.
or you and three other people, and then
Yeah.
sometimes it can be something with hundreds or thousands of people.
Yeah. Isolation is a killer. As an alcoholic, isolation for me is a killer. I learned it last year. It's a killer. And there's nothing like walking into a room full of other alcoholics to go, oh my God, I'm not the worst person in the room, because she's far worse than I am. You know, I'm not the best person in the room because he has nicer shoes than I do. Right? Like it keeps you right. Community keeps me right-sized. Community keeps me engaged, right-sized, and feeling like I have a place. And that's my job. I can't, none of the things that have happened for me since I moved to Toronto, the only reason why they've happened is because I took the step to go out to these things, to make myself seen and heard. And when I wasn't doing that, I found disillusionment, I found victimhood, and I found isolation and loneliness. So,
Wow. Man, you could not have summed it up better or more clearly. I mean, this is the theme of everything we're about at For the Love of Creatives, and you just wow is all I got to say. Summed it up in the most eloquent way. Okay, it's time. Thank you. That was amazing. It's time to move into rapid fire questions.
oh no, I hate these. Okay, go
You'll do great. And
ahead.
sometimes they're kind of random, but since I know you, these are specific.
Oh
I
no.
pulled these just for you.
Okay.
Question number one, if you could have a redo on one part of your life, what would it be?
My connection to my birth family.
Got it. Number two, if given the choice to live your creative life in solitude or in a creative community, which would you choose and why? And I think you may have already just really, really gone over that one. So
Community,
unless
because
you have something else to say, it's pretty much
that's it.
covered.
Yeah, community. Yeah.
Number three, when you're extremely old and about to take your last breath, what will have been the most important part of your life?
My art, my work. If you want to get to know me, you watch a movie I've made or see something I've acted in, and or read a short story, you know who I am.
I haven't seen them recently, but there was a period of time when your posts on Facebook popped right up onto my feed. They haven't lately, so you're not posting or the algorithm has changed, but you would be standing in the doorway with some fabulous outfit on, always in great shoes. So the dude at the meeting could not have had better shoes than you because I'm a shoe
You are.
like a holic. So I
You
noticed
are.
shoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it going
But
on. I got to say that. You have
thank
the
you.
fashion thing going on.
It must be the algorithm because I am still, whenever I go out, I don't know. It's just they say that you're supposed to do something on Instagram. So I'm like, okay, I'll just throw something together and go to a party and, you know.
I'm curious, how many followers do you have on Instagram?
Oh, not very many, like 1,700, I think.
Oh,
A
Not a
that's a
few.
lot.
few. I mean, it's not like millions, but that's, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I'd give anything if we had 1,700 on ours, but ours is pretty new.
I have
We're
a girlfriend on Drag Race. I have a girlfriend on Drag Race that went from, I think, before it came out in Canada, Canada's Drag Race. She was at like 19. Now she's at like almost 30,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
So
Wow.
we just got to shave you both up. We got to put on an eyelash, a little red lip, slap on some heels, and get you on Drag Race, and that'll up
I
your.
I you know, I
That's the
think
formula.
we could probably both pull that off if we really tried.
We got to do drag. We got to get into drag.
Barron, this has been absolutely amazing. I mean, I knew some of your story, but wow. And I just want to honor your vulnerability because you got it down. It's a superpower for you, isn't it?
Thank you. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a superpower for me as well. And there was a part there in a few minutes ago where I thought I was going to bawl right in the middle of your story. It touched me so deeply.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. I appreciate both of you. It's nice to meet you both
I,
again.
Well,
I can't wait to make this public, publish it because I just think it's like, wow, wow, wow.
before we wrap, is there anything, Barron, that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Words of wisdom.
Just say yes. Say yes. Say yes to it. And allow the ideas to come in and allow the downloads to happen and as best as you can, because you always have the option of saying no after you say yes. So just say yes.
Beautiful. I agree wholeheartedly.